previous lecture, we saw how to create database collection and attributes within a collection, and then we inserted some records as documents. Now in this one, we'll be learning how we can retrieve those documents and display them in our web application. To do that, we'll first of all have to set up some identifiers for the database and collections. So under the projects events, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and we'll be looking at the databases. And here you can see the database ID is provided. So let's click to copy. Once we have copied this, we'll be heading over to our local environment variable. And over here, we will be providing these identifiers. So here I've pasted the database ID, and let's go back and get the collection ID as well. So clicking on the database, you'll be provided with the collection ID, and over here, this is the collection ID that I want. So I'll go ahead and replace the collection ID over here. Now we have these set up. The next thing that we need to do is create models for the data that we are trying to retrieve. So if you remember over here in every collection, when you click on the collection, you'll be getting the documents. Now these documents are comprised of attributes, as we can see over here. So we have name, location, and date. Similarly, we will have to create a model at our end in the web application to consume these documents. So over here, I'll be going inside my src directory, and then I'll be creating a models directory. So let's create a folder, call it as models, and within this we'll have the event model created. So we'll create a new file. Let's call it as event model.ts, and in this we will be going ahead and creating the data attributes. So we'll call it as export, and then we'll say interface. Next we'll have the name of the interface. So here we'll say it as event model, and then we'll just have the attributes mentioned over here. So we have name, location, and date, and this is the primary key or the identifier $ID as a string. So now we have the model created as well. The next thing that we need to do is in our library, we'll be creating a function which will be retrieving all the events that we have created, and then it will pass it on to our web application. So over here, I'll be creating a new file, and let's call that as events. So here inside the lib directory, I'll create a new file. I'll be calling it events.ts. Now within this, a couple of things that we need to do is we'll be exporting an asynchronous function, and after that we'll give it a name, like let's call it as get events. And when we need to do this, remember that we need to connect to the database, and then we'll need to map it to the model that we created. So these two things are required before we go ahead and create this function. So we'll head over to our appwrite.ts file, and over here in our appwrite.ts file, we'll be setting few more variables. So as we need access to database, we will be going ahead and we'll be making use of database over here from Appwrite, and next we will be creating an instance of the databases, and we'll be passing the client over here. And once we have done this, let's save it and head over to our events.ts file. Now, a couple of things that we need over here. The first is importing the databases that we just now created in our events.ts file. So that will be getting from the lib appwrite. And next, the model that we have created. So we'll be again typing import, and over here we'll be getting the event model. So inside the models directory, we have the event model.ts. So here, if I go and see, this is the event model that I'm referring to. So we'll be getting that over here from models, and then this event model. So here we'll be providing that. And now we are good to go with these things. So the first thing that we need to do is, if you see this environment local, we created these two identifiers, database and collection. So in order to get the list of the events that we have created, we'll be making use of this particular thing. And we'll be doing that by writing. And this documents will actually be provided to us when we'll be making use of the databases dot list document method. And the list document basically takes two parameters, first being the database ID, and the next is the collection ID. So here I'll be providing the database ID, and then I'll be providing the collection ID. So now we have provided these two, and once we have this result with us, we'll be returning an event collection, and this event collection will be of type event model. To do that, we'll be writing it in this way as events, and then we'll make use of the document.map method, document, and then we'll be further going ahead and accessing the attributes over here. So the attributes are going to be exactly the same, it's just that they will be prefixed with the document keyword. So here I'll be just quickly grabbing these values from here, I'll be pasting it over here, and then instead of string we'll just have document dot id, and then we'll have document dot name, and then we'll have document dot location, and then we'll have document dot date. So now we have it. We'll be just finally returning the event that we have created, return event, and then we are closing this. Finally, we are returning this from here, and then we are all done with the get events method. Now the only thing remaining is to consume this one, and to do that we'll be heading over to our index.tsx file, and here you can see that right now we are making use of the events.json file. So this is something which we will be commenting for now, as we also know that we are not retrieving images at the moment. So what we'll do is we will be getting rid of this image that we have over here. So all we'll be left with the date, location, and name. That's what we are getting from our events collection. Over here, in order to work with this, we will have to have two things in place, that's use effect and use state. Let's go ahead and include them in our code piece. So here we'll be making use of use effect and use state. Now, the first thing that we do is make use of use effect to call the get events method that we have created. And where we have created it, we've created it in our events.ts file, which is residing inside the lib directory. So we'll have to import that from there. Let's go ahead and do that. So we'll be importing get events method, and we'll also have to import the model that we have created. So that's inside the model directory. So to do that, we'll be just heading over and we'll be copying this line of code. We'll be going back, and here we'll say event model from models/event model class. Once we have this, all we need to do now is make use of the use effect method to call the get events. So within this home, we'll be first of all creating this user state. Once that's done, we'll be calling the use effect, and here we are using these set events. Now, as you can see, we have not passed any dependencies, so it's going to be called only once when the component is mounted, and then we are just calling the set events, and that's pretty much it that we need to do at the moment. Now let's go ahead and run this. So we'll be going to our terminal, and over here I'll be going inside the events directory, and then I'll be running npm run dev. Let's launch the link over here, and there we have it. So you can see we have music events. These three events are coming up from the Appwrite collection that we just created.